There we go. All right, we are now broadcasting live, but we're still waiting on quorum. I think I did see one more person come in, so we'll go ahead and just do a double check real quick. For JLMBC members attending, so far on the labor side, I have Dave, I have Marlene, I think I see Gavin. Good morning, Gavin. On the management side, I have Wendy, I have Matt Crawford, and I have Holly. Is there anybody else who is a JLMBC member I did not call? Okay, we do have a full quorum then, 3 and 3. So Dave, if you'd like to begin.
Oh, Paul, actually, Charles asked if we could start our meetings now by calling the roll. So just, if you just call the name and then everybody says that they're present.
Oh, okay, I can do that. So actually, let me share my screen for the people that I have so far. Okay, so we'll just do a roll call vote then. Just say yes if you're here. So Dave?
Present.
I know Paul Beachley's not here. Marlene?
Marlene? Present.
Thank you. Is Gary Glaze here?
I'm here.
Hi, Gary. Thank you.
Hi, everyone.
And then we have, for Chris standing in, we have his alternate, Gavin.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Gavin. Wendy?
Present.
Thank you. I know Tony's out. Matthew Crawford?
Present.
Thank you. I think I just saw Matt Zabo. Matt, if you're here, if you could say present.
Present.
Thank you, Matt. And then Holly.
Present.
Thank you. 4 and 4 now as a quorum.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. We have a roll calls completed. Now we have I'm gonna call the meeting to order. JLMBC agenda for December 14th, our special meeting agenda. And we will go to the agenda item of public comments. Paul, can you open up the phones for public comments?
Sure. For anybody who is attending by phone, if you could press *6 on your phone at this time and announce yourself to make a public comment. Hearing no public comments at this time.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item is the recommendation for approval of minutes from the September 2nd and November 4th meeting. We have a recommendation to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All right, moved in second by Gavin and Marlene. All in favor?
Oh, we do have to do a roll call vote for it, but just to clarify, is the motion for all 3 sets of minutes, September 2nd, November 4th, and November 30th?
That's correct.
Then we'll go ahead and go with the roll call vote, starting with you, Dave. Dave, your vote?
Aye.
Dave votes aye. Marlene, your vote?
Aye.
Marlene votes aye. Gary, your vote?
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Gavin, your vote?
Aye.
Gavin votes aye. Wendy, your vote?
Aye.
Wendy votes aye. Matthew Crawford, your vote?
Aye.
Matthew votes aye. Matthew Zabo, your vote?
Aye.
Matthew votes aye. Holly, your vote?
Point of order, since I wasn't here, is it still okay to vote aye?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've seen those situations before. So
Okay.
yes.
Aye.
Aye. Holly votes aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is committee report 2136, AB 361 update. Is that also you, Paul, or Stephen?
That'll be me, Dave. So just for the committee's information, we brought a similar report to you at your last meeting, walked you through the details of AB 361 and the requirements. So I won't go through those requirements again, unless there's a request for that. So basically what we have here is a recommendation for the JLMBC to find that the current state of emergency continues to directly impact your ability to meet safely in person and to adopt the resolution that we've attached to the report.
Do
Dave,
we
you're on
need a
mute.
Dave, we can't hear
need a
you.
motion? Do we need a motion to approve
Oh,
it?
I'm sorry. Yes. Is there a motion required for, or just to be?
I move to approve.
And I'll second.
There you
Gavin.
go. We have a motion and a second by Gavin. All in favor, we'll take the roll.
Okay, we'll go in the same order. So Dave, your vote.
Yes.
Dave votes aye. Marlene, your vote.
Aye.
Marlene votes aye. Gary, your vote.
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Gavin, your vote.
Aye.
Gavin votes aye. Wendy, your vote.
Aye.
Wendy votes aye. Matthew Crawford, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. Matt Rudnick, Matthew Zabo, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. And Holly, your vote.
Aye.
Holly votes aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. Let's go to the next item on the agenda, 2137, JLMBC bylaws, excuse me.
And I'll be presenting this one. It's Paul Mikowski from Employee Benefits. The bylaws are coming back to the JLMBC. This is the second time we brought them back after initial revisions to the bylaws when we brought them to you back in September. The request or the conversation back at that meeting was really around the two main options, which was the identifying of the alternates, the formatting of how the discussion was made, and also the time limits and kind of how the alternates were being identified as members of the committee. So we took the bylaws back. We brought them back also to the subcommittee to make a couple of different revisions. In attachment A of the report, you'll be able to see the track change version of it. It's a little hard to read. So within the body of the report, you'll see the final version of what the updated bylaws look like to try to address the concerns of the committee. So now both sections, the management section and the labor section, are as uniform and consistent as we can make them so that they both relate the same way. The only difference is the difference that was existing prior, which is that on the management side, the chief management analyst, the chief management analyst level is what we're going to be designating an alternate to be at, and it's going to be subject to the approval of the CAO, which we do not have in the labor side just because of logistical reasons. The other component that we did make a change to and is applicable here is there is a deadline date on the management side to be able to have the current designations of alternates stay in effect regardless of classification through the end of next calendar year. There are no other substantive changes to the bylaws that were brought to the committee from their last reading. I would note, though, if it's intended that the committee adopts the bylaws as recommended by staff, there will be some changes to elections as the new bylaws do change the officer order for this committee moving forward and allowing now 4 officer positions instead of just the 2 chairperson and vice chair. We'll be talking about that in the next report if this committee adopts these reports adopts the bylaws as presented. Happy to answer any questions about the bylaws or the changes that are proposed.
Are there any questions, comments from committee members? If not,
Dave, I'll make
sir.
a motion to approve. I sat on the governance committee toward the end of these changes. I thought they were smart and well thought out, and I commend staff for listening to us. So I'd make the motion that we adopt the new bylaws.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion is moved and second. All in favor? Roll call.
Okay, we'll go the same order again. Dave, your vote.
Yes.
Dave votes aye. Marlene, your vote.
Aye.
Marlene votes aye. Gary, your vote.
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Gavin, your vote.
Aye.
Gavin votes aye. Wendy, your vote.
Aye.
Wendy votes aye. Matthew Crawford, your vote.
Aye.
Matthew votes aye. Matthew Zabo, your vote.
Aye.
Matthew votes aye. And Holly, your vote.
Aye.
Holly votes
Thank
aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you all. Committee report 2138.
I'll be taking this one too. So this is the election of officers that we bring each year under the bylaws, both the current policy and the renewed policy. We do election of officers at the end of the year for the next calendar year. And it is also written in the bylaws that the positions shift between labor and management each year. So as identified in page 2, in an even number year, the chairperson is identified as a member from management and the vice chair is identified as a person from labor. Because committee adopted report 1237, we're going to be adding in 2 positions that need to be also elected through this process. The first provisional chair, who's going to be a member from management, and a second provisional chair, who's going to be a member from labor. So there's some additional information within the report that we should go through. We could either pause now and take nominations to do those officer position elections, or I can finish the report and we can come back to that, but we do need to take officer elections at this time. What would you like to do? Are there any questions?
Are you looking for a recommendation from this committee, or which?
Yeah, well, why don't you finish your report and then we'll do the elections. Okay. That way we're in good consecutive order.
Okay, sure. So, so going through the rest of the report, there's an update on subcommittees and status. So we have actually 4 subcommittees at this time. There is a governance committee whose purpose was to be able to adopt the bylaws, and with the action taken just previously, the ad hoc governance committee has fulfilled its purpose and will no longer need to meet. We do have a couple other standing committees that we wanted to go through, and the first one is the ad hoc health procurement planning and plan design subcommittee. We had a member on that subcommittee who was part of management, and Neil Guglielmo was the member that is no longer part of the subcommittee, and will be needing to replace Neil's position as a management member on the subcommittee. This subcommittee is planning to meet for a few times moving forward in its intent to be able to review the upcoming revisions to the health RFP that we are intending to release early next year in 2022. So we'll be asking the management members to nominate a replacement for Neil's position on the subcommittee no later than the end of this calendar week, so that we can reconform the subcommittee at multiple meetings coming forward for their work to be able to look at the health RFP moving forward. The other 2 subcommittees that are part of the JLMBC, there's no change to the membership. There's no need to change to the membership, at least immediately, because there's no vacancies. However, you can always make a motion to change membership at any time if you so choose. The other 2 committees are the Ad Hoc Plan Design Committee, which is intended to be able to look at the larger scale of the plan design menu and make changes. We last met with that committee just last year, actually, to adopt changes to the cash in lieu benefit. And then the last committee, the standing committee of the wellness subcommittee, it hasn't met in quite a while, but we would be rescheduling it. The committee membership is identified in attachment B within this report. Additionally, we wanted to go over the schedule of meetings for the next calendar year of 2022. We are proposing multiple meetings in 2022 to follow a couple different objectives, one of them being the adoption of the health RFP that we have to reissue for 2022. The beginning part of this calendar is tentatively mimicking the calendar that we had from last year to be able to facilitate the adoption of the health RFP. So we're going to be proposing a couple meetings within the month of January and within the month moving forward to be able to give us a little bit more time in getting that draft RFP ready, which we plan to bring to the committee in the end of January. And then the full RFP ready for release, we're planning to bring in the beginning of February. Additional meetings may need to be scheduled, but that would be our initial proposal for the first quarter of 2022. In addition to those meetings facilitated for the health RFP, we do have AB 361, which we do need to have meetings with the JLMBC every 30 days or less to be able to continue having this teleconference meeting style. So there will be additional meetings put in as needed, and if required, as long as there is an order continuing our ability to be able to have these teleconference meetings and adopting AB 361. The rest of the meeting schedule for 2022 is relatively the same as in prior years, where we have additional meetings set forth in May and June, specifically for plan adoption. But we will be doing health RFP selection or vendor selection at that time as well. for us to adopt the 2023 plan by the end of the fiscal year. And then everything else outlined in this calendar is the routine items that we need to bring forth to the JLMBC each year. So if there's any questions about the subcommittee membership, which is identified in attachment B, or the plan of calendar events and the items that we have scheduled for those calendar events in 2022, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, you can go forward with elections and nominations for the officer positions.
Hearing no questions, are there nominees for chairs and co-chairs that we're calling the person? I'm sorry.
So there's chairperson, vice chairperson, first provisional chairperson, and second provisional chairperson. And we need to take them one by one for a vote.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate Wendy Macy as chair.
Can I just?
Is that appropriate to make the motion now, or were you going to make a motion, sir?
I think it's appropriate. I just wanted, my question was, can a labor side second that motion? But no, not even a question. It's good to go.
That would be nice.
Well, I have no problem seconding that motion. Are we good, Paul? What are we doing?
Sure. If there's no other nominations, then we can go ahead with a roll call vote. So we'll start again in that same order. So Dave, your vote.
Aye.
Dave votes aye. Marlene, your vote.
Aye.
Marlene votes aye. Gary, your vote.
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Gavin, your vote.
Aye.
Gavin votes aye. Wendy, your vote.
Aye.
Wendy votes aye. Matt Crawford, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. Matt Dable, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. And Holly, your vote.
Aye.
Holly votes aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. And now we're voting for a vice chair, or am I correct?
Correct.
I'd like to nominate Dave Sanders.
I'll second that. Reluctantly, just kidding.
If there's no other nominations, then we can go ahead with the roll call vote. And so we'll start for the top again. Dave, your vote.
Yes.
Dave votes aye. Marlene, your vote.
Yes.
Marlene votes aye. Gary, your vote.
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Gavin, your vote.
Aye.
Gavin votes aye. Wendy, your vote.
Aye.
Wendy votes aye. Matthew Crawford, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. Matthew Zabel, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. And Holly, your vote.
Aye.
Holly votes aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. And the first provisional chairperson. Is there a nomination for that?
I'm sorry, for what?
Is that what we're, again, I'm reading the screen there. First provisional chairperson for the management side. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Matt Szabo for first provisional chair.
Is there a second? I will second.
Okay. If there's no other nominations, then we can go ahead with a vote. We'll go in that same order. Dave, your vote.
Aye.
Dave votes aye. Marlene, your vote.
Aye.
Marlene votes aye. Gary, your vote.
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Gavin, your vote.
Aye.
Gavin votes aye. Wendy, your vote.
Aye.
Wendy votes aye. Matthew Crawford, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. Matthew Zabel, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. And Holly, your vote.
Aye.
Unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you, sir. And we need a second provisional chair for the labor side. Is there a nomination?
I'm going to nominate Marlene. How's that?
She needs a second, doesn't she? I second that vote, Marlene. David, I will second it.
If there are no other nominations, then we'll go ahead and take the roll call vote again in the same order. So Dave, your vote. Dave votes aye. Marlene, your vote.
Aye.
Marlene votes aye. Gary, your vote.
Aye.
Gary votes aye. Gavin, your vote.
Aye.
Gavin votes aye. Wendy, your vote.
Aye.
Wendy votes aye. Matthew Crawford, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. Matt Zabo, your vote.
Aye.
Matt votes aye. And Holly, your vote.
Aye.
Holly votes aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes.
Okay. And is there a motion also needed to adopt the whole entire report? Is that required, or?
The rest of the report, excuse me, the rest of the report is just a note and file, except there is remember there is the request for staff to tell us, or for the management side to tell us their nomination for the ad hoc health procurement subcommittee member by the end of the calendar week.
Okay, so, all right, report noted and filed, and we can move to the next agenda items. There are no other questions. Okay, and agenda item number 7, provider presentation by Standard Insurance Company.
Good morning, this is Angela McCrae. I have the pleasure to provide an overview of the Standard Benefit Program and introduce Jennifer Stevens, whom will provide greater detail of the 2020 program overview. Next slide. Paul, do I have authority to move the slide? Okay, thank you. Standard has been partnering with the city since 1998, providing eligible employees with basic life, short-term disability, long-term disability, and supplemental insurance. Of the benefit eligible employees, 56% purchase supplemental coverage, 20% purchase buy-up disability coverage. Next slide. Utilization of the top 3 areas of life, short-term disability, and long-term disability includes circulatory, respiratory, and cancer under life. Short-term disability includes maternity, musculoskeletal, mental, and under long-term disability, musculoskeletal, mental, accident, and violence. We'll now turn the presentation over to Jennifer Stevens for a deeper dive into the Standard program. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Stevens, and I'm a national account consultant at Standard. I've been working with the city's plan for about, I think, close to 8 years now, and I'm joined today by Kari Furman and Brandon Stokes, who are senior employee benefits consultants with Standard. Also, Darren Plotnick, who is an account manager and who has been on the city's plan since day one, and Lars Whaley, who's a client manager, also working to service the plan. We make up your sales and service team and are pleased to be presenting to you today. Just a little bit about the presentation. We'll have a brief summary talking about kind of current state of the plan, as well as an overview on history, participation, and then deeper dive into claims. Can I please have the next slide? Thank you. So the city provides, and this may be, not new information, but just a high level overview of the program. So the city provides a basic life and disability benefit, and then employees can purchase supplemental life, AD&D, and they can buy up on the disability plans. So Angela hit on the participation. This is in line with previous years, 56% on the life plan and 20% on the disability. The life plan enrollment is, I would say, strong comparatively. It looks pretty solid. 20% is fairly average, I'd say, on disability, maybe a little bit on the low side. And then we do have a slide that kind of shows a year over year on what the enrollment has looked like that we'll get into. Just status on the current financials. So life claims definitely fluctuate, and that's expected. It's normal for it to go up and down, which can be different from other coverages. We tend to look at a long look back because of the infrequency of claims. And so 2017 to current, so where we are in 21, demonstrates a pretty high loss ratio on the basic life plan of 147%. We'd expect this to be more around 80, but important to note is the basic life plan is a very small amount of the overall premium in the life program. So that may look alarming, but it's really not when you look at the plan collectively. The supplemental plan, which makes up by far much more of the premium, is running well at 69%. And combined, we're looking at 73%. So overall, when looking at the life coverages together, I would say it's running fairly well. 2017 forward, again, we look at a look back on disability. It's a little bit more credible due to the claims being more frequent, but still we look back further. The STD is running near target at 75%, and long-term disability higher than expected at 80%. We underwriters might adjust when they look at a case, the retention factors a little bit. Typically, we want to see LTD more around 70%. So it's running a bit high. We'll get into this in the slides too. Departments with the highest incidence include police and airports. I'd say this is fairly steady with your past experience. Musculoskeletal claims represent the majority of disability claims, which also is pretty consistent. And then we have some benchmarking data, which will show mental claims look a little bit high in STD, and accident and musculoskeletal in LTD. Next slide, please.
Sorry, I have a question on this slide. If I could just,
sure.
Just really briefly, you mentioned that there's a target for the short-term disability plan. Is there a similar target also for the life? Is there like this is what we're trying to hit there, or this would be a good percentage?
Yeah. And it when looking at a combined basis, I would say in general, we're looking for around like 75-ish%. The underwriters do with a case this big, they'll really get in and scrutinize everything and can adjust factors. So typically I would say around 75% for life insurance.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So this has a lot of information on it. I certainly will not read it to you. There's some basic information about plan design, showing what's in place with the disability plans put in 1998, the life insurance added in 2011, and then the voluntary AD&D in 2013. 2018 forward, we've partnered quite a bit with the HR department to put in a lot of plan enhancements. So this has been a nice thing with the standard plans, kind of creating efficiencies within HR and as well as a better experience for your members. We added telephonic claim intake, which allows someone to just call in a claim. We send out notification for continuation of coverage, kind of removing that from HR's plate. We also added some communications, and I'm looking in the year 2018 to help members and again to kind of shift that work to standard. So there's a decision support tool that's web-based and helps members make decisions about what the right amount is to purchase for them. It gives details about the plan, has calculators, claim examples, things like that. And then we also have a microsite that kind of has everything standard bundled in one. So all the forms, all the certificates for our coverage, things like that. So kind of a one-stop shop for standard, and we maintain that so HR doesn't have to. We added a behavioral health resource center. It's really geared at management versus employees in 2020. And then currently right now we're putting in place an EOI notification service for members who are late enrollees in the buy-up or wanting to elect more life insurance or late enrollees. Well, I guess there's an annual open enrollment, but if they want to go higher, we need them to submit medical evidence, and standard is looking at using the data feed now to take over notification from the city. So we'll use data there to send out notifications so the city doesn't have to. So been a good last couple years in increasing capability to help support the city.
And the notification will have the standard, if you will, the standard logo or letterhead. How does an employee know, or how does it designate? An employee will know that it's from the city of LA, or will they even open your mail if it doesn't say city of LA?
It'll reference the city's plan in there. So the letter talks about it, and we use basically like a termination queue on the data feed, and then that tells Standard to kick this out. And so it'll reference the plan number in the city.
And right, currently employees contact the city HR, if you will, in order to connect with you, or is it just a straight 800 number to Standard or website?
We do have an 800 number. Right now, the notification of continuation of benefits, HR is currently handling. So this will allow, Standard to send that instead. But we do have a general 800 number that members can use to call and claim and ask questions on any one of the departments.
And right now, the city year round can do that, or just during open enrollment period?
Oh, year round. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So this shows kind of a year over year with plan participation. So we are noticing a slight decrease in enrollment. Important to point out is there hasn't been any significant plan changes, and we have increased enrollment communications. So not sure what's driving it. It is very slight. Again, on the life insurance, I would say the enrollment looks strong, not too much of a concern. Anything we can do to partner and help continue to provide education efforts, we're happy to do. Obviously, disability and life insurance are incredibly important benefits. So, we're all for partnering there. So noticing a slight decline, but I would definitely underline slight. And this just shows 2018 through the 2021 enrollment. Next slide, please.
Hey, Dave, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir, Gavin.
I was just wondering, because you had mentioned earlier that they can sign up at any time during the year. Do you send any notification other than once a year to the employees on this, or do you periodically, like every 6 months, send a reminder or something of that effect?
Is that a question for me or for
them?
No.
So Standard does not push out mailings. It's something we can do at request. So we have the decision support tool is available anytime, and it's an on-site link. I believe the city has it posted on the LA Well site, and then the microsite is out there as well. We can, we're always happy to look at a push for, communication around the programs, but we don't do mailings automatically.
I don't know if your report says this, or you mentioned it, what the usage of that system is now. We have a tracking, how often people go to the site. And
I don't have it here. I could look to check that. I could follow up and let the HR department know. I'm sure it's more highly trafficked during open enrollment, but yeah, I do not have the usage here.
I'm just not sure if members are aware that it exists. So
got it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that was my point. That was my point, because they may not be aware that they can sign up at any time. That was my point.
And just to be clear, to enroll in these plans, it is limited to open enrollment. But of course, members can, do contact the Standard throughout the year for anything claim related. So just want to make sure that distinction is clear.
Thanks, Stephen. And we have Standard in the past has presented at open enrollment webinars too. We re-advertise the information then, and certainly make sure people have access to the links as well during open enrollment. There is kind of incentive during the open enrollment too. There's a portion of life coverage that's available without medical evidence for late enrollees just during open enrollment annually. So there's incentive there. Any other questions on enrollment? All right. So now we're digging into the life section, and I would say this graph looks like how we expect life insurance to look. It goes up and down. And so kind of, consistent. This is, not surprising. We have through 2020 here. I didn't put in 221 to date. This does include the basic, the supplemental, and the dependent life plan. And you'll see this in an additional slide too, but it's just noted here that the top diagnoses are accidents and violence, which are, mainly probably accidents with life insurance. That category is used in disability too. It also refers to like sprains and strains and fractures, circulatory problems, and cancer. Next slide, please. So this shows the top diagnoses, and the yellow line is the total paid amount. So what we're paying out in liability, and then the claim count is the bars. Accidents and violence, I'll just point out that that includes all the AD&D claims. So that does include a coverage that the rest of them do not. So I would say as far as diagnoses go, cancer and circulatory are the #1 for city here. And that I would say that's, you know, pretty consistent with other things we see. Next slide, please. So this shows your year over year. So this is specific to the city, 2017, and it is including 2021. This shows where the diagnoses are falling each year. And the big thing I would point out here is the respiratory category for the last 2 years. This includes COVID claims. So we are seeing impact to the city's plan from the pandemic, and we categorize COVID claims as respiratory, and you can see a pretty significant jump in 2020 and 2021 in respiratory. You know, it's in talking with actuary, the pandemic and where things are going are still incredibly hard to predict. We haven't normalized, we haven't stabilized. I would say the silver lining here with the city is the overall experience from a financial standpoint is looking okay. But I do want to point out that we have seen a large uptick in respiratory claims due to COVID. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this shows short-term disability claims and benefits paid. Just to point out, 2021 is not a full year, so that may look, you know, falsely a little bit low. We expect those numbers to increase. We are seeing a slight decline in STD claims over the last couple years. We also are very cautious about that. We do think COVID, with people working at home, with not getting elective surgeries, it might be, you know, falsely better than expected. So we're continuing to watch it. I met with one of our actuaries recently on your case, and we're just looking at it. So it's kind of hard to predict with the future. A lot of people are going full-time virtual, and we could really be seeing a long-term change in how things run. But I would say the last couple years look a little better than expected. Next slide, please. This shows the breakdowns by department, and this is pretty consistent with years past. I would say airports and police are always high in usage. Benefits paid is the green line, so how much we're paying out, and then the claim count is the blue bar. And hopefully everybody can read it okay. I know my face is getting closer to the computer, but police and airports, sanitation, transportation, parks and rec are the top 5 there. Thanks. Next slide, please. So this shows top 3 diagnoses year over year, and I would say the city's pretty consistent with these. So musculoskeletal, maternity, and mental. Next slide, please. And this shows the city's diagnoses compared to benchmarks. So the lighter blue bar is Standard's book of public business. And Standard does have a significant book of public business, so cities, counties, states. So we benchmark against our own data on it. And then we also break it down further specifically for California. We have enough in California to benchmark specifically against there. So the dark blue line is benchmark for public sector California, light blue public administration in the US. The orange bar is the city, and then IBI is the green bar. IBI is the Integrated Benefits Institute, and it's a source that Standard utilizes to provide a second benchmarking. So I would say overall, the city has, I think what's most significant is mental. Higher incidence of mental and circulatory claims are higher too, and then slightly higher in cancer and nervous, which there's not a lot of control over. I think probably to me the big standout is mental. Next slide, please. So this shows breakdowns on the top diagnoses, just so you can better understand. Really, musculoskeletal is a very broad category, so this kind of shows where they fall. So certainly back and joint disorders are driving that, along with, it looks like, knee replacement type activity too. Next slide, please. This is the drill down on mental claims. So episodic mood disorders, bipolar diagnosis falls in here. Main driver in mental. Next slide, please. So this shows the closure reasons by year. So the different color bars are the different years. And it's pretty consistent. And then anticipated recovery date is the top reason. So people, and that's pretty common with STD. End of benefit period is the other. Return to work, we always like to see in the top 3, and that's up there as well. So this kind of shows you, how the plan's going and how we're managing claims. Next slide, please.
Hey, I have a question on that last slide. If we can, I just want to make sure I understand the different categories, because in my head somehow they seem like they overlap, but I just want to make it clear. So what is the difference between anticipated recovery date and end of usual recovery period? Is that like somebody got better faster than is medically normal? But that doesn't make sense to me, so I'm not sure about that. And then return to work, how is that different from recovery? Are they returning before they're recovered, or I'm not clear on the exact delineation on those.
Right. So we use something called the medical disability advisory to predict when someone's, like, based on their occupation and disability, how long it'll go. So end of usual recovery period speaks to that. Anticipated recovery date is if that drives through earlier. And then with return to work, I believe it's that they actually, instead of making it to the recovery date or the usual recovery period, they return to work with some sort of limitation or restriction.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question too on the mental. Have you seen an uptick because of COVID on the mental claims?
I would say in general we have. I do think the city has been high over in the past as well. We've typically seen that, but we have seen an uptick in mental claims with this. The city, I don't think it'll necessarily play through in the data, just because you guys. So your benefit waiting period for the disability plan is the longer of 100% and 75% of sick leave being used. So that can kind of skew things for how we look at the city. But we have, I would say, as in general commentary, we have seen an uptick in mental claims during the pandemic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Jennifer, is that statement you just made, is that different than the other public sector employers you see as far as running the 175?
It is unique. Yeah, it's unique plan design. So I would say, like, commonly for STD, we see a benefit waiting period of any days from like 7 days to 30 days. But we do see, and I would say this is about 50-50, the requirement to burn sick leave or use sick leave first is pretty common. So I think, the specific language of using 100 or 75% is pretty unique to the city, but the requirement to burn down sick leave is not. Does that answer your question, Marlene?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any more questions on the short term before we move to long term? Right. So this shows a 5-year look back on LTD. So we're seeing some pretty consistent data. Again, 2021 is not a complete year yet, so there will be more information added to it. Also, recent LTD years also look a little bit funny because sometimes offsets aren't settled or reserves aren't settled, so it can be a little funny. So it's looked pretty consistent over the past years. Next slide, please.
And both are still being driven by both PD and airport, those numbers?
That was a good segue.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, there it is. Oh, okay. All right.
You are spot on. So yep, this green bar shows the benefits paid, and then the blue bars show claim counts, and police and airports are right up there. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this shows top 3 diagnoses. We're kind of running through the same information with LTD as we did with STD. You'll see this switch a little bit, and that's because maternity is always going to be high in short term, where you're just not going to see it in long-term disability. Other than that, I would say it's fairly consistent with diagnoses. So certainly being driven by musculoskeletal, we find that to be incredibly common with public sector, that musculoskeletal is usually number 1. Accidents and violence. So again, that naming convention is just not the best, but that's really speaking to like sprains and strains and fractures and things like that that are keeping people out of work. And then mental claims as well.
And just on the claims itself, the police department, is there a distinction between sworn and civilian, or is it all grouped together?
No, I'm going to call on Darren for. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I can't say. Yeah, the data that you see, the fund number was 4302. This is only civilian. We don't provide disability benefits to this one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I knew it was one or the other, and I was going to call on Darren, our standard history for city. Thank you for jumping in. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so this shows benchmarks. Again, we're using the same things here. So the Integrated Benefits Institute, as well as standard data for public admin and public admin California. So we're seeing that the city has a higher incidence of musculoskeletal claims and a slightly higher incidence of accidents and violence claims. Lower in cancer, which cancer is just really unpredictable. It kind of can be hit and miss. So I don't know if I'd put much relevance there, but just a little bit higher in musculoskeletal, and then the accidents and violence category. Next slide, please. So this gets into the drill downs, and it's going to probably look pretty consistent here with the STD back disorders being the number 1 driver on musculoskeletal. Next slide. So accidents and violence, so sprains and strains and fractures, this is typically what we see and fairly common. Next slide, should show the mental, yep. So episodic mood disorder. So really kind of mirroring where the diagnoses are the heavy hitters within the categories, mirroring STD, excuse me. So this talks about claim closure, and this so it's year by year. So again, the bars represent different years, and these are the reasons for claim closures. The city's data is always going to be a little bit skewed, and I would say the reason for that is we have on the base disability plan a 2-year maximum benefit period, and that is so by far most claims are going to show that in the data that they're ending due to the maximum benefit period. So that's always going to be expected to be number 1 because of your plan design. Return to work is second, which is always great to say, and anticipated recovery date. So don't let end of benefit period worry you here. It's driven by that 2-year. Next slide, please. Oh, and this is just, so we're at the very end now. These are just a breakdown. If you need any reference regarding the diagnoses codes, this kind of tell you what are the different diagnoses within. And that's it. Thank you. Is there anything that we didn't cover or any other questions that you have today?
I actually have one question. I'm not sure if this would be for you or for the city. Do we have a sense of how long the average, like the typical period is between an injury and when they start on LTD? I'm sure there's a variation because you have to do the use up the sick time, and that could vary, and it could vary if you have the 75% of the 100%, and then you go through the STD period. But what kind of is the average? Do we have a sense of kind of what period of time we're talking about before people get to the LTD period? I'm not sure who knows that, or if that is sorry.
So I can, and the city might want to chime in here too. So the LTD period, it has a benefit waiting period of 180 days. So
Okay.
once a claim is incurred, that's the start of that period. And then we will start paying 180 days later. So it just depends kind of how many people have sick leave that gets them past 6 months. And I'm not sure if Paul or Stephen or anybody else might have information on that.
We don't. I think that it's a difficult kind of concept from a data perspective, because a lot of people start the disability process at different times, and they have different buckets as far as time before they get into that, and it's a little complicated on some scenarios as well. But yeah, we don't have data on that.
Okay. So I'm kind of trying, what got me started on this tangent was the sprains and strains being a long-term disability, and just thinking like, what are there actually a lot of, I guess there are sprains that last beyond that impair you for longer than 6 months, and potentially much past that. So I'm going to be very careful walking around the house.
Yeah, and I think it certainly depends too on the occupation you're returning to. So like, heavy occupations where you're required to lift a lot or something like that is going to probably put someone out longer than a sedentary job. So it's a combination of those factors, and like because someone might get long-term limitations or restrictions from something like that might prevent them from doing a very heavy occupation. So it is a combination of factors there.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I know it's a kind of out there question, so I appreciate it.
No, it's great. I appreciate the questions. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question to Shauna's, actually. It's making my mind think as well. So with this 6-month waiting period and the city's requirement of burning all your sick time prior to qualifying for the benefit, do they have to burn all their sick time before they apply? Or can they apply 6 months before burning their sick time?
Oh, no, they can apply before it's done. It's kind of a moving target, like for especially like, so someone can work while they're disabled. If they're just not working at full capacity, they might qualify for a disability claim. And if they're accruing more, it gets to be tricky. So we work with the payroll departments to obtain that information during claim time, but yeah, they can apply before.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I like your tree. Festive background. Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much.
And thank you for your report. Hearing no other questions or comments, we'll go to the next agenda item. And that would be item 2139, open enrollment.
All righty. Hello, everyone. This is Ted Vasquez, Benefits Analyst in the Employee Benefits Division. Committee Report 2139 is the 2021 Open Enrollment Implementation for Plan Year 2022. Now, the 2021 Open Enrollment for Plan Year 2022 ended on Sunday, October 31st, 2021, and staff is currently working on the administrative and record-keeping activities to close out open enrollment, including collecting required supporting documentation from employees and processing any enrollment corrections. Now, through the rest of the calendar year, staff will be working with LifeWorks, the city's third-party administrator, to finalize the file exchanges that transmit the enrollment elections to our benefit service providers, as well as to ensure that the 2022 employee deductions are accurately taken through the city's payroll system. Now, on page 2, the chart shows some preliminary figures of open enrollment activity, and the final figures may differ slightly as employees were able to submit corrections during that correction window through November 19th. Now, this year there was a small decrease of total active enrollments as compared to 2020, and this may be the result of the continuance of our unchanged benefits plan menu and the minor changes to our benefits costs. And on page 3, the chart shows the tentative 2022 health plan enrollment migration as compared to the enrollment as of September 2021. And these are consistent with the reduced open enrollment activity. And there was very little migration occurring, with a small number of members moving from the Anthem Narrow Network HMO and the Kaiser HMO plans to the Anthem PPO and Anthem Vivity plans. And currently, LifeWorks is working on closing out any enrollment changes, and they will provide a full open enrollment debrief report at the JLMBC's March 2022 meeting. And that concludes this report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Has there been any analysis by you all or Anthem themselves as to why more people aren't migrating to Vivity, if that's supposedly a lesser out-of-pocket plan? Or is that on just Anthem to do that? Has the city done any analysis why?
We haven't done any analysis. Paul, I'm not sure if you want to say something as well, but I mean, we don't, you know, the question would be sort of, you know, which you probably would only get to through a survey, is really why people are making decisions that they are, including a decision to not change health plans. So I don't think we really have that kind of data available.
No, I was only going to add, the only surveys that we have right now are the ones that are done through the LifeWorks system at the end of enrollment, and it doesn't cover like those kind of questions. We haven't done anything to that level.
Any other questions, comments, committee members?
I always have questions, David. You know that. Gavin.
Gavin, yes, sir.
I have a quick question. It seems like it went fairly smooth this year on an open enrollment, but I'm always looking to see where we can do better. Do you guys do any kind of, the staff does any kind of follow-up or tracking where hiccups, there's always little hiccups in the process. Do you guys track that and look for improvements for the following openers to make it smoother as possible? I know you're going more web-based, and that also has its challenges as well, but I was just wondering, I haven't heard anything back on how you track and deal with that. That was all. Thanks.
Yeah, I can answer that one. So we are actively doing that with our third-party administrator, LifeWorks. We're meeting with them to talk about all the behind-the-scenes things, the administrative side, as well as the front-facing customer side, what members experience, to look for those hiccups, to look for anything that could have been done easier. They're calling it a lessons learned, but we do that process informally, and this year we're doing a little bit more formally with them to try to identify things to improve for next year.
Thanks. I just wanted to make sure there was a process that was off that you guys to work on. That's my main question.
I recall last year we had Morneau Chappelle on a needs improvement plan. That's my word for it. Have they met those benchmarks, or are that's still a work in progress?
We are still working with them on a few of those benchmarks, actually. The big one that has not been met yet and needs a lot more work is our electronic communication benchmark, being able to get back to the intent that we wanted to have email notifications and pretty much go paperless. That has a lot of work to be able to get to that benchmark. They have met a few of them, though, and we're continuing. They're being an active partner working with us on everything.
Okay, good. I have no other questions. Anyone else? Thank you, Paul. We can go to the next agenda items. Is that 2140?
Okay, I will take this one, and I'll keep this brief. So this is our usual monthly report. Just a few items I wanted to note on this report. We are looking ahead to 2022. We're going to be launching another STEPS challenge. This will be team-based. That'll be in January. This was quite popular last year. It allows a team of up to 5 individuals to compete against other teams, and the team target is to accumulate a combined 1 million steps, and there are prizes for the teams that score the highest. So we saw really good participation last year. Looking forward to that next year. We also had good participation. We've now institutionalized a couple of things. The other one that we just did was our second annual Thanksgiving Turkey Trot, which is a similar challenge, but it's not team-based. And definitely we find that those team-based challenges are preferred by employees. So we like doing those. Other than that, our classes and activities and participation in all of them is very consistent with prior months. So any questions on that?
Do we have a healthier workforce, or is everybody still fat?
Oh my God. That's inappropriate.
That's inappropriate. How are we, what is that? I mean, ultimately with this wellness program, I assume we're looking for a healthier workplace. How do we, this is nice and all that. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I'll move on. Marlene, you had a hand up.
I hear you, because I think when we started this, we wanted things that, had measurable results, and maybe like tackling things like, I don't know, diabetes and whatnot. But no, I hear you. I think it's still early. But what I did want to say is thank you for the report. I have a 10 o'clock I have to cut out on. I think the rest are informational. If I leave now, quorum is okay?
I believe that's correct.
Yep, you're fine to leave.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Any questions, comments on the report? If not, we can move on. All right. Last committee report 2141, program and activities.
Good morning, JLMBC members. This is Chung Tran with Employee Benefits, and I will be going over the highlights for the projects and activities report. For November, we just have a small number of items to report on. First up, on page 1 is the LAWell Employee Benefits Trust Fund 2021 report. Since our last update from the prior JLMBC meeting, the report was scheduled for and approved by City Council on November 11th. Second item we have is a brief update on the ACA. Staff has been continuing to work with Ernst & Young, gathering the necessary data, starting the preliminary review, and establishing the requirements and deadlines necessary for the furnishment of the 2021 1095 forms. And then going over to page 2 will bring us to the staffing update. Stephen will be going over this section for you, but before he does that, is there any questions on the first 3 items I can answer for you? No? Okay. Thank you all. Stephen?
Okay, thanks, Chung. Yeah, so I just wanted to note here that Personnel Department has been actively engaged with succession planning for key leadership positions in our division. So that includes my position, as well as the Senior 2 position, which was vacated when recently Jenny Yao promoted and moved to a chief's position in another division. So we recognize these are key positions. We want to make every effort to try and create as much continuity and leadership as we can. So to that end, one step we are moving forward with is trying to onboard a new division chief prior to April, which is when I will be retiring, so that there will be some overlap and training time for that individual, which we think is very important for the work that we do. We have an opportunity to do this because there's a new and an presently vacant chief level position with a different compensation plan. So I'm able to move into that position once the new chief is appointed, but then I still have that opportunity to work side by side for whatever period of time is going to be left for me. We're also in the process of trying to fill the vacant Senior 2 position. We're actually in the middle of that process now, so we hope that's resolved very soon. But once again, here, because this is such a key position, the more training time we have available for that individual, the better. So we are trying to be proactive and creative in our approaches in planning for these changes and being able to show our leadership resources. And we will continue to keep the JLMBC apprised as we're moving forward with all of this. Are there any questions?
I assume when you said we're moving forward, that we anticipate these positions being in place to move the open enrollment, the procurement process, the RFP process, or how do we expedite or make sure that's going to happen, or will it impact us moving that timely if they aren't filled? Right.
Well, so part of why we want to bring in the successor of the division prior to when I leave is because, as you know, as you all know, once we get to April, I mean, there's a very narrow window of time. Really, it's that month and the month of May that are when all that work needs to be done, both in terms of designing sort of what the plan's going to look like the next year, being able to bring all of the premium information for all of the providers, not just the health plans, to bring all of that to the committee. So that's why we've done this approach, or taken this this approach to try to mitigate the risks for that, or sort of that change in leadership occurring at that time.
Gavin, do you have your hand up? No.
No, I was just going to say I appreciate the report, and I appreciate trying to work out the transition. We're going to miss you, but I appreciate trying to work out a plan so we don't have a disruption. So thanks.
Yeah, and I still have that concern that I don't know if there's a plan B, or if I'm just overly sensitive to it, of it not being in place, succession plan, new positions filled, and our open enrollment period, our RFP period gets delayed, and we're acting in a way that our hand is forced, maybe, if you will, to roll over or to do the same thing as we did the prior year. So that's my concern, and I don't know how we expedite that or make sure it happens timely enough for before you leave or anyone else leaves. So how do we help guarantee that's in place timely as a committee, or how can we be of help? And I say we, I mean the labor side. And I know I'm way off, I don't know, but that's my concern. And is there a plan B if in fact this doesn't get done? Is that what we're stuck with, the same providers for the following year?
So, I mean, I don't think we can speculate that far ahead. One of the things that we are trying to do with the RFP, and we'll be discussing this with the ad hoc group once we are able to do that, hopefully within the next few weeks, is trying to streamline what that RFP looks like, and to make it easier and quicker, hopefully, to be able to conduct the evaluation and get that in front of the JLMBC as quickly as possible. So, but I think the other general comment, Dave, I would make is that we can't. We sort of approach this in managing risks. We can't guarantee, we can't control all of the outcomes, because, as you know, this is a small group within this division, and so it is very dependent on those individuals, and there's when we have key individuals leave, and we've got to be able to be able to plug holes and fill gaps. I mean, we're just the best we can do is the best that we can do, and I think that's our approach.
And I appreciate that, Stephen. And I think we can, or I can predict or try and be proactive based on knowing the city's hiring process, and the time it takes. And again, in anticipation of there being hiccups and delays and the position not being filled timely, it will have impact on the membership. That's my concern. So I think that's real. It's not just something that is more likely to happen than not. It's just where you are now with all the other obligations that you and your staff have to do. I don't know if that requires us to have a separate committee discussion or something. I just want to make sure it gets done. And again, this process doesn't get delayed, stalled, or even or rolled over to another year. That's my concern. I don't know if that's a committee sub work that needs to be done, or I'm just not satisfied or convinced that it will happen timely right now. So I want to just be clear on that. And maybe I'll reach out to our new chairperson and we'll discuss further. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions on the report? Hearing none. Thank you. I think we're at the last item of the day is future agenda items. Is that correct, Paul?
Correct.
Are there any requests, items for future agenda? Anyone on the committee? Hearing none, next meeting date scheduled for January 6th and January 27th. And there's no other items to be discussed. We can request or call for an adjournment. Does that need a motion or we just do it, Paul?
We've had a practice of just doing it. So if you want to call for adjournment, we can.
Let's do it. Thank you all. Have a good evening. Have a good holidays. Enjoy.
Thanks, David. I'll
Take
follow
care.
the chair's lead. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Have a great holiday and good seeing everyone. Bye.